This is the new Porsche Macan, and it's a little bit like the location I've chosen to film the car. You see, it's a bit risky. Looks desirable, but there is a chance I could fall in the water and drown. Likewise with Porsche, its customers who love the Macan may reject this new one because it's electric only. Now I'm going to tell you whether this car is any good in this video. I'm going to walk you around the exterior. Here's a baboon's bottom. I'm going to show you the cabin. This is one of the very biggest. I'm going to tell you what's good about this car. What's not so good about this car? How much is your charge life worth? I'm of course going to take it for a drive and I'm going to launch it to see how quick it is from 0 to 60 miles an hour. I'm Matt Watson and you're watching carwow. Let's start this video by talking about the design of the new Macan. So from the rear, it's familiar to the previous car, but looks quite new because of the new light design. Very thin, you've got a full-length light bar, you've got the new Porsche 3D logo that's exposed as well. Some more like streaks and lines down here. This being the turbo model, it has a more aggressive rear bumper design, which protrudes slightly and sort of reminds me of a baboon's bottom. Anyway, this being the turbo as well, look, you've got these extra vents here over the standard car. They're not actually vents, they're fake. They're just to make it look sporty. Moving down the side here, wheel sizes start at 20, rise to 22, which is what this car has. And there's a number of different designs to it as well. Once again, being the turbo, you get slightly different window surrounds. So they're like this kind of sort of like satiny effect, whereas you just get matte black on the standard car. These panels here, you can have either in body color, like on this car, you can have them in black, or you can have them in carbon fiber. Similar story really with the door mirrors. So normally they're split color, so body color at the top and then black at the bottom, but you can have them full body color, carbon fiber or matte black. Moving down to the front, this is the biggest differentiator compared to the old Macan. These are actually the daytime running lights, and then the actual headlights are down here, a trend that was first started by Citroën, I think on the old Picasso. Look. One of the things that I really like about the new Macan is that being electric, it doesn't have to have a grille to cool the engine. Yes, there is an air vent down here, but this design makes it feel more sporty and more 911-y. And actually, back in the day, Porsches never had grilles because the engine was always at the back. So this is pretty much going back to their roots. Now, being the turbo, this is more aggressive, this part here with this front splitter. And it does look quite cool, doesn't it? I like the design of this car. This would be the colour I would go for, sort of like metallic green. Though there are a load of other different, more exciting colours, you might say, but this is definitely my bag. Now, something else to point out on the turbo is that there's now a new badge bespoke to the turbos. Look, Porsche crest is in this sort of like monochrome smoked effect. Standard car is just the normal badge. You'd have to pay quite a bit extra for the turbo though. So the range for the new Macan starts at just under £70,000. The turbo though is £95,000, which is pretty expensive. Here on the inside, the new Macan feels very different and more modern than the previous generation version. Clearly inspired by the Taycan and the new Cayenne. So there's these straight lines here, lots of screens, as you can see. So you've got a digital driver's display there, all digital dials, slightly curved screen, really high definition. By pressing a button on the steering wheel, I can toggle between the different views and settings for the 3 dials like that. And there we go. I'll go to the next one as well. So plenty of option and functionality with that. Then there's the main infotainment screen. Very similar to that in my 911 GT3 RS, but it just seems slightly more responsive, slightly sharper graphics, being able to control all the different functionality on the car. Then there's this optional screen. It's about £1,000 extra, and the passenger can then play with this, sat nav, all that kind of thing, the infotainment system, and watch videos on YouTube. Look there, Auto Alex, yeah. And German carwow. Don't know where the British carwow one is. It's a bit sad, isn't it? Anyhow, quality in here, yeah, it feels really nice. This car does have the extended leather, and it feels premium. And look at that. This is very Porsche, isn't it? Straight stitching, no higgledy-piggledy action there. Obviously you can alter all the interior trims, there's lots of choice. If you don't like leather, you can have artificial leather, you can have race tex, which is basically Porsche's version of Alcantara, but they don't have to pay Alcantara people for their Alcantara. Seats, we've got the turbo badging, and the interesting thing on this car is that they've lowered the seating position by almost 3 centimetres compared to the old Macan. Does make me wonder, Why have a jacked up SUV only to then sit lower? I suppose it gives you a bit more of a sporty driving experience, but if you prefer to sit high, look, there is plenty of adjustment in the seat and you can sit quite high. There's also plenty of adjustment in the steering wheel as well, so you can move it just as you like. Plus, there's a variety of different steering wheels to choose from. On this steering wheel, we have the drive mode selector, so you can quickly toggle between your 4 different driving settings. Though if you want to, you can go into the menu here and just alter some of the settings individually as you like. Let's check out some of the practicality because it does matter. So underneath here, some storage, and it's quite deep and lined with felt. So if you put things in there, they will not rattle. Here you have your cup holders, and what I like about this, not only do you get ambient lighting around the cup holders, but they're nice and deep so they don't get in the way of any of the functionality here. And this is key as well. While other car manufacturers are stuffing more and more functionality through the screen, Porsche said no! Climate controls should be easily accessible, and look, you've got these switches which you toggle. And while these buttons are touch sensitive, the actual panel does move, so you know that you're pressing something. Underneath here is your charging pad for your mobile phone, and I'll just turn that off again there like that. And look, everything does feel quality. Let's just check out the glove box. Oh yeah, look at that, nicely damped. Yeah, and the size, that's reasonable, and once again, it is lined with felt. Let's just check out the door bins. Oh, yeah, there's plenty of room in those. I could fit a big bottle, no problem at all. And while you're down there, darling, have a look at that. Burmester sound system, 21 speakers. Obviously, that's an upgrade. You can get a Bose sound system as well, like a mid-tier. That comes standard on the turbo, and entry-level cars have a slightly less punchy sound system as standard, but there we go. Yeah, it is very nice in here. I like the glass roof. Obviously, that's an optional extra, but one of the good features is that it opens. Ah, what a beautiful day. Another thing I like is this, look, the frameless rear view mirror. It's a nice big size, and you have a decent sized vanity mirror as well, so you can get a good look at yourself, be very smug about your new Porsche Macan and the fact that it's an EV and you're not like harming the environment. Well, depends who you talk to, innit? You know, where did the batteries come from? Anyway, shall we move on and not talk about that right now? Here in the back of the new Macan, it's definitely more spacious than the previous version, which did feel a little bit cramped. Whereas here, look, this seat is in my driving position. I'm 179 centimetres tall. Knee room is good. Now, Porsche do this thing with the battery packs where they don't actually have cells in this area here, so you have these foot garages. However, the seat does seem quite low, so yeah, I'd rather be at that position. But one of the things, yet again, that they've done with this car is try to make the seating a bit lower so it feels more sporty. So it's 15 centimetres lower to the ground, this seat, this hip point, than in the old Macan. Now in this car, I can't really stretch out into the seat in front. Can you see that? But that's because I've got that seat quite low. If I move over here, where this seat is raised up somewhat, that is a bit better. But you may have just noticed something there. As I moved across, I dragged my feet across the climate control buttons. There is a risk that when you've got kids jumping in and out of the car, they may end up knocking those. Bit of a shame because it's quite useful having all this functionality here with dual zone climate available here in the back, heated seats. Yeah, it's pretty nice and loads of technology. What's not so good though is this. These little sliders there for the air vents feel so cheap. Shame because the rest of the car does feel quality. Now, if you have young children, look, you've got ISOFIX anchor points. They seem so anchored on the covers. There we go, I've got them open. Look, those are easy to access once you know how to work them and you're not an idiot. There you go, easy to get to. If I fold down this, you have your cup holders there, they are exposed, so if you've not got cups in there, it's not as comfy as it could be, though you do have through loading by pulling that lever there, and yes, we've got some stuff in the boot. Other things to show you is this. One of the benefits of the lower seat, headroom is okay. Now, this has the panoramic roof, so it's not quite as good as in the car without it because you've got the mechanism for the roof. I've got that much space above my head just, so people over 6 foot should be okay, but let's find out for ourselves. So, Adam, how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
Go on, sit back.
It's not great.
It's not great. There we go. That's proper car consumer journalism right there. Let's move on to the door bins. So, they're a reasonable size. Quality back here feels great. Look, we've got the ambient lighting extending here, and you can actually mix and match different like trims. This has got the carbon fiber effect there, quite like that. Now let's just check out the windows. Do they go all the way down? That is pretty rubbish, isn't it? However, this car is fitted with a sunshade, which is good if you've got young children. Look, so pull that again. Oh, that's satisfying. That sort of thing pleases me. So it's pretty decent back here. However, if you need an electric SUV with more space for similar money, you could get a BMW iX. And if you want to watch my full in-depth video review of that car, just click on the pop-out banner appearing in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Alternatively, use your mobile phone to follow that QR code that should be appearing on the screen now. The boot capacity of the new Porsche Macan is up to 540 litres, which is bigger than that on a BMW iX and the new Mercedes EQE SUV. And as you can see, it's a nice square shape. There's not too much of a load lip to lift stuff over. You have these scuff plates as well, so you don't damage your bodywork as you're hoiking things in and out. We've got some good features as well. So nettage over here, and there's more nettage over there as well. We've got strappage. We have tie-downy pointy edge. There's hookage. It's all well and good. Now, you might be thinking, what about storing the low cover underneath the false floor? Well, on this particular car, you can't. And I'll show you why in a moment. But that would normally mean that the parcel shelf is going to get yeeted. And today that would mean it's going to end up in the ocean. However, there is a solution on this particular car, because when you're not using this, you can, not doing a very good job with this, but you can, come on, store it there. Like that. So it's had a stay of execution. Now I just want to show you this because I like this feature. To lower the rear seats, you just pull the lever and they flop down and you get a nice continuous flat floor. There's plenty of space in here, as I can illustrate now by childishly climbing into the boot, and you could sleep in here if you needed to. However, there is a slight issue with turbo and cars that you fit with the more expensive sound systems, because you do get a subwoofer underneath the false floor, and that eats into the luggage capacity, reduces it by 60 litres. And that brings me on to 5 annoying things about the new Porsche Macan. Safety is paramount these days, yet for some reason, the rear passenger side airbags on the new Macan are an option. They're not that expensive, £315. But let's say you order this car and you forget to spec that, or you think, I'm gonna spend on that, and you end up cheaping out. And then, so unlucky that you have an accident in your car, you've got a kid in the back, and yeah, the worst happens. Imagine that you didn't tick that option. You know, how much is your child's life worth? I'm not saying it's going to happen, and it's extremely unlikely, but it's not impossible. Why not just make the safety kit like that standard? Come on, just add it to the cost of the car for everyone. It is in the best interest of everybody concerned, Porsche. As standard, there is no rear window wiper. Why not? I know it's raked and water might drain off it, but for a while when the window's dirty, it's just going to gather there. So if you've been parked, it's been raining, you're going to have to get out and wipe the window with your hand. This black plastic trim scratches really easily, and if you've got a right-hand drive car like us in the UK and you've got a watch and you're operating this, you can scratch the buckle against there and it'll soon look a total mess. So you might want to PPF protect that. You can get the car with an electrically operated charging flap, which you open like that. It's kind of nifty, isn't it? However, there is no way to shut it from here. You have to either use the key, or when you drive off, it'll shut. It will shut itself after about 2 minutes, but let's say you've just shown your friend, oh, look at my clever charging flap, which incidentally, you have to pay extra for. You're going to be left with your flaps open for a while, which is a little bit kind of embarrassing, isn't it? Now, another thing that could be embarrassing is if you completely deplete the car's battery and the 12-volt battery as well, you're not going to be able to open that, are you, without breaking into the car somehow and then pulling the release lever, which is somewhere inside. So you could just go, do you know what, I don't want that. I'm just going to not pay extra for it and have a normal manually operated charging flap, which you can get with this car. However, I've been told there's a problem in certain countries that when you're charging your car, kids are walking along and just snapping off the open flaps. Finally, the towing capacity of the new Macan is 2 tons, which is actually 400 kilograms less than the old internal combustion engine version. Oh dear. However, it's not all bad. You see, you can get this car with an electrically deployable tow hitch. If I press this button here, it's going to pop out. There we go. And then you just lock it into place. Same thing to put it away. You press the button, it's going to relax off and you push it up there. You might get your hands a little bit dirty, but no big problem. Now you can get this car with air suspension, and then there's these other buttons in the boot where you can raise and lower the car to make it easier to load or unload. Actually, you can change the ride height in this car by up to 70 millimeters from its lowest position to its very highest position for off-roading. This LED lighting in the car isn't just for your ambience, it's also a communication light which you can turn off and on. It does a welcome animation when you get in the car, and this is it. There's also a goodbye animation. There is your drive mode change, which seems similar again. Then there's the launch control, look at this. Ooh, launch control. Then there's the charging, bet it's green. Yes, it's green, of course it is. And then it'll do this when you lock the car. When you activate the voice controls, it does this kind of thing. Blah, 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 blah. Exit warning, so if you go to get out the car but there's someone walking past. And then there's the lane change and turn assist, does that. All very communicative. This is one of the very biggest heads-up displays available on any car. So it's optional on the Macan. And it's so big that it's a little bit like watching an 87-inch television 10 meters down the road from you. Also, it can display actual directions on the road, so you've got augmented reality sat-nav, and it can show loads of other functions as well, such as your driving assist. It's pretty cool, isn't it? As with many other vehicles, you can have hands-free opening of the boot. It's handy if you've got arms full of shopping, and you can shut it as well. So it does want you to move away to shut it for safety. Go on, shut, I'm safely away. But has it got this safety feature? Anti-pinch, please. Oh, it sussed it out. Let's see if I can trick it. It works. I didn't know, really. Anyway, I want to show you this because this is particularly unique. Look, you've got hands-free for the front boot, and there is 85 litres of space in there. Is it big enough for me to just sit in and enjoy the scenery? Yes, because I've got narrow hips. You might think it's a little bit dangerous to have a screen for the passenger which they can watch YouTube channels on, such as German carwow. It's not an issue, right? Because when I put this car into drive, the driver won't be able to see anything anymore. Watch. I can still see it, but the driver can't. It uses a special filter. It's very strange. The Macan shares quite a lot of its components with the Audi Q6, like the battery system, the inverter, all that kind of stuff. However, for the rear motor on the Porsche, it is behind the back axle rather than in front of it, like on the Audi. For the Porsche driving experience, yeah. I've got some Germans looking at me like I'm a twat, yeah. Now, one of the benefits, along with that kind of classic Porsche feel, is this. You can get rear axle steering on this car, and it can turn the back wheels at up to 5 degrees. Benefit of that is that it reduces the turning circle by 1 meter over the car without it, and compared to the old Macan, so it goes down from 12.1 meters to 11.1 meters with the rear axle steering. This is the rear axle motor on the Porsche Macan Turbo. Now, this will not be shared with the Audi Q6, it's Porsche unique. This thing though, look at the size of it. It puts out up to 640 horsepower, which is pretty much the same horsepower that you get from the 3.8 litre twin turbo in the current 911 Turbo S. This is less than half the size. It weighs less than half that engine. It's insane that it can deliver that much power. That's not all though. It's more efficient. So 97% of the energy that you put into this will actually go to the wheels, whereas with the internal combustion engine, only about 30% of the energy that you burn in it will go to the wheels. One thing I can't say though is that this is going to sound as good as the engine. But that is quite a high price to pay for the noise. Porsche has teamed up with Austrian boat maker Frauscher to create this. It's called the E-Phantom. Uses the batteries, the motor from the Macan Turbo. This thing has 550 horsepower. It will do over 50 miles an hour, which is quite a lot on water. Apparently, it's a game changer in the boating leisure industry, and it's going to cost you about £700,000. Now, I wonder if I can get an allocation on this. Sebastian here has decided to let me, foolishly, have a drive of this boat. Oh, it's so responsive. Whoa, ow. But apparently I'm in some safety range mode, because if you take it out of range mode, it goes a lot quicker. But Sebastian doesn't trust me with that, so you're gonna drive it in performance mode.
Yeah, can you...
Okay, go on then. Sport
You
Plus.
want to sit down?
Really? Oh, I'm getting excited. Go on then.
A few moments later.
Blimey. Wow. Freaking hell.
All right.
Yeah. It's so cool. Just starting to drive the Macan, and I went to drive through a roped off barrier, but thankfully there's a man to help us out, and just cleared. It's like playing limbo in the car. Now what I've done is reset the trick computer there, so we're going to measure the efficiency of this car. We've got a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack. Range on the standard car is up to 380 miles, on the turbo about 360. We're going to work out what the real world range is. So I've got the car just running in normal mode. We'll see how it does round town. So first test, let's check out how good the suspension is. This turbo is on air as standard, so yeah, over those speed humps it's nice and relaxing. I might just raise my seat up because I do like an SUV to feel tall. It's what you expect from an electric car. It's very, very quiet, very, very relaxing. Got good sound insulation, so I can't really hear anything on the outside. Not much suspension noise. This surface in the road is pretty bad right now, and it's coping with it very well. Steering's reasonably light, but not too light. It has that sort of chunky feeling that you get from Porsches. You know, I can tell this is a Porsche just in the way the steering wheel feels, which is what you want if you're paying this kind of money. Now, this is going to be £10,000 more than the equivalent Audi Q6, so you want that Porsche feel, don't you? One thing that I'm kind of missing is one pedal driving. You do have regen effect, but it's not that aggressive. I'd like it to be more aggressive. I think the philosophy from Porsche is that actually always using regen isn't as efficient as coasting, because you're recouping energy and putting it back into the battery, blah, 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 blah. There's all those kind of losses going on, whereas just keeping on rolling is better. But from a control point of view, one pedal of driving is quite useful. Visibility in this car, so these pillars are really chunky and the dash is quite long, but I can see the corners of the car. In fact, the design of the bonnet is a little bit 911-y with the way that you have like haunches over the lights. The view out the back window, not the best because it's quite narrow, but I've got big door mirrors which are helping me out. There's another Macan. Oh look! We don't see many of these in the UK, but I've seen a few here in France. A Citroën Ami. Right, I do want to test out the turning circle in this car. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be doing this, but oh yeah, that is super tight. Look, made it round no problem at all. For a reasonable size family SUV, pretty blooming easy to drive around town, so that's a win in that department. We've got a bit more speed up now into an 80 kilometers an hour or 50 mile an hour road. It's very quiet in here. It's just a bit of noise from the tires, but wow. Just whack it into sports mode, Sport Plus. Let's see if it's a bit more responsive. Blimey, blimey, blimey. So Adam, I'm just going to jab the throttle a little bit with the car in normal mode. So I'm just jabbing the throttle. I'm going to do the same with it in Sport Plus. You ready?
Blimey. Oh my God.
Right, let's get back into normal, shall we? Until we get out of the city. Porsche warned me about that. Because sometimes electric cars, while they absolutely take off, that first bit of throttle response can be a little bit like of a delay. This is like, whew, on it straight away. Finally got out of the town and we're onto some twisty mountain roads. Do you know what? I'm going to lower my seating position. Let's go all the way into Sports Plus. Right, here we go. With the suspension in its sportiest setting, this car stays pretty flat through the bends. That's interesting. It seems to build speed like an internal combustion engine car rather than being all at the initial press. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Also feels quite tail happy. You see, the interesting thing is that this turbo has a total power output of 640 horsepower. And as I've already explained, you can get that from just the rear motor. The front motor can produce 230 horsepower. So you might be thinking, why not combined do I have over 800 horsepower? Well, the reason you don't is because the battery can only provide enough electricity for 640 horsepower at once. But what it can do is make all of that horsepower come from the rear axle if it wants to, and that just makes the car playful. Now, I'm not going to mess around turning off the stability control or anything silly like that, because I just don't like doing that kind of thing on the road. But oh my gosh, you really do get a sense that this is sporty rear-wheel drive, and it has that Porsche element of fun. Now I get the point of having the seating position lower, because when you're driving like this, you want to be lower and more connected to the car. I'm astonished at the brakes actually, how natural they feel, because sometimes electric car brakes don't have the feel in terms of blending out of the brake as you're going into a corner, whereas this works just like a normal friction brake. It's very, very, very good. Now a lot of people who buy this car probably won't really care about that, but for those that do, who maybe have a 911 in the garage as well, will appreciate that the braking system on this car still has that Porsche vibe to it. A Tesla Model Y performance, that can give you thrills in a straight line like this. In fact, you can see my full in-depth video review of that car by clicking on the pop-out banner up there or following the QR code that should be appearing on the screen right now. But the Tesla can't get close to this thing in terms of fun factor for people that get enjoyment from not only going quick in a straight line, but quick and with lots of control through the corners. And that's what this car does, which is quite surprising when you consider just how heavy it is. 2.4 tons for this turbo. I mean, eventually the weight will get the better of it. At normal road speeds, it doesn't have an impact. This thing can properly handle. Now, it'd be quite interesting to try the normal Macan 4, which has a mere 408 horsepower maximum output. I'm sure that'd still feel pretty quick. Whether it's as crazy dynamic as this one though, probably not. Now let's check out the performance. 0 to 60 of this turbo is supposed to take 3.3 seconds. What's the reality? Launch time. Whoa, it's quick. 3.2 seconds, of course. Wow, it's rapid. One last thing to do is to check the efficiency. During my test drive, I've averaged 21.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and that converts to about 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which when you multiply up by the battery capacity of 95 kilowatts gives a real world range under the driving conditions I've just experienced of about 276 miles. So that's about 76% of what the manufacturer claims. Though, to be fair on this car, I have been enjoying some spirited driving. And of course I launched a car which won't have helped the efficiency and isn't probably how most people will be driving this car most of the time. But it does mean if you want to drive it in a way that you can have some fun, you will still get around 270 miles out of it. So then what's my final verdict on the new Porsche Macan? Should you avoid it, consider it, shortlist it, or just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I have to say this is the best handling and most desirable electric SUV. However, because it's only available as an electric car and there's no internal combustion engine version, the actual appeal of the Macan probably isn't quite as wide as it used to be. And that's why I think you should shortlist it.